Beautiful.
It's recording. Hi, I'm Elaine Brewster, and this is Aspects of Energy, a forum where we talk about ways to raise our energy. And what better way to raise our energy than dance and movement? So today we have a special guest, Adam Dyer, who is a teacher at BYU. And as you can see above, he was Spider-Man on Broadway. And I would like you to be able to see just a short clip of some of the things he's done. So I want you to look at A Thing of Beauty, Adam Dyer, BYU, and I will link that with this also. But it shows him doing things and then also being a teacher. And he made a comment on there that when you're older, the body maybe doesn't work quite the way it did when you were 20, as most of us can attest to. And so I would love Adam to talk about movement and dance and what he does and what he perceives in his own body. And I'm just going to kind of get out of the way.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Elaine. It's just such a pleasure to talk with you and to hear your passion for being the best version of yourself. And to me, movement and dance does that for me. I honestly can't make it through a day without moving and feel right about myself. I just have to release and just all the studies that we have.
There is this one little bit in this book that shows somebody in a bathtub, you know, saying, why would you want to just stay in a bathtub when you can get out and move?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk to my students here at BYU. I talk to my family members who are of all ages. And I think we just have come to this common understanding that it releases all these healthy hormones and chemicals from our brain. We are designed to be movements in motion. We develop momentum when we start moving, and that momentum moving forward can be very healing.
That's cool. I've had a couple of experiences in my life where I've seen people move in some really remarkable ways. One was a pianist, and I was right there. I was about as close to him as we are here, so I could see his fingers. But I was just listening to the music, and all of a sudden it sounded like he had 3 hands and there was one person. And so I looked on the piano and he was doing this bass stuff, but with his right hand, he had separated his fingers, and 2 of his fingers were doing a trill and the other fingers were separately doing a melody. So it was like he had 3 hands. I've never seen anyone else do that, to have that control. And one time, a long time ago, in RDT, that's Repertory Dance Theater, our teacher was warming us up, and he was working with his bare toes on the floor, and each toe not only worked separately, but each muscle in each toe worked separately. He could grip the floor. He could do things that I have never seen any other feet do. And, and they were lovely. They were beautiful.
Well, I love hearing that story. I think a big thing about why movement makes us feel so good and makes us have a clarity in our lives is because it brings awareness to us. It helps us have this connection between our spirit and our body, and we start to understand who we really are, because you can start to isolate parts of your body, or you can start to share a texture with how you're feeling. And so for me, movement increases my awareness of who I am, and then I find better, more accurate ways of communicating. Dance is such an amazing language, right? Because the body is a universal experience for every human that you'll ever meet. And so the way that we can communicate emotions and joy and fear through the body can really resonate in story format, which is why I love performance, but it doesn't need to be a performative art. It can be a practiced art where you're just in your living room when you wake up in the morning and you just, start to recenter yourself through the day through a little bit of activity.
That's nice. I have a nephew who has cerebral palsy. So he spends every day in a wheelchair. He can't function. He cannot move unless he's in the wheelchair. Do you know what his favorite kind of music is? It's not my favorite kind. It's rap.
Is it?
And I finally realized, I think it's because that insistent rhythm makes him feel like he can move.
Yes. Yes. And really the bottom line to me is that people connect with what they enjoy. I think, we all have different tastes in music and movement. And for me, maybe someone got turned off from a dance class that their parents made them take, right? And my parents didn't make me do that. They allowed me to play sports growing up, soccer and basketball and tennis. And if it had a ball and I could compete against somebody, I loved it. And then I came to dance on my own and said, hey, I was like, is it okay if I quit my soccer team or put basketball on pause and take ballet classes? And because I came to it, I loved it. And that really opened up the door. I started to take classical ballet 6 days a week. And then I realized when the music flourishes, I wanted to do more. I wanted to flip. And
that's where modern dance comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still feel like the contemporary vein that I'm still researching right now, we're pulling in street styles, we're pulling in these urban influences where, people have really developed this tenacity for communication, essentially, as they wanted to communicate with others that they're around through their body. And now we're taking it into a performance art and trying to put our own voice to it.
I love how you're talking about dance being a communication form and pulling in together. Adam just recently choreographed Fiddler on the Roof, and it was really wonderful. It was a very meaningful, very, I don't want to say gritty, that might convey the wrong thing, but it was just really authentic. In helping us to understand the feelings. And an amazing thing was every single dancer on that stage was feeling something and showing us what they felt individually. It wasn't this group effort where it's like, I don't have to give as much because I'm just part of a group. They were all individual. But one of the crazy things that Adam did was in the dream sequence, they used the what do you call the ribbons? The silks.
Yes,
aerial silks.
Aerial straps.
Yeah, aerial straps. And that was really wonderful. What an amazing part, because in a dream, that's what you're doing. And so they helped to visualize that whole dream sequence. That was pretty cool.
I appreciate your kind words. What was so fun was seeing we cast an enormous amount of students. I kept going to bat in these production meetings where you plan the production and say, more students need to be involved. We need to open this up.
Good.
And so in most of those production numbers, we used the entire cast of 31, which on a tight stage with a large set just is a lot of bodies to move around intelligently.
Yeah.
And those dancers, some have been training since they were young, but also we had a bunch of students who had never taken a formal dance class, but just wanted to be performers and wanted to have this experience. And so we had to tap into that, right? I think the biggest misconception is people are like, oh, I don't dance. I've never taken a class. It's like, yes, you do. Like, what does your body feel like you have to do when you're joyful? When you want to when you want to celebrate, when you hear music and you can't sit still. And so I just try to tap into like natural ways of moving through storytelling, through ideas, through imagination. I tell my dancers here at BYU that their strongest muscle is their imagination. And sometimes I ask myself to live up to that principle too, because I can just get stuck in rhythm and repeating the same, things that I've established as my way of approaching dance. But if we can just kind of put on this creative hat, I think Fiddler, the product that we ended up with, is a tribute to the students' creativity. And I'm just grateful they put up with me.
Well, I think in what you ask them to do, then it gives them, a certain latitude to do it their own way and to express themselves individually.
Absolutely.
And that's very important.
And then you see someone bring themselves to a little bit of direction you may have offered or a structure you've set up. And just, it's a healthy sense of pride. You're like, look at what they've developed or grown into. And you see them kind of tap into, I think, who they truly are right in front of you.
Well, and they certainly grow from the experience.
Absolutely.
The next thing, well, not the next thing, but one of the next things he's working on is Cinderella, which is up at Sundance. You've heard of Robert Redford's
Sundance Resort.
Yeah, well, and what's
his film festival?
Yeah, the film festival that they just had. But he has a resort up there also, and they have an outdoor amphitheater. And so that will be fun working on with several different entities.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about storytelling, right? Is you get a team of, production team of costume designers, set designers, hair designers, and they're drawing sketches of how they envision it. And just through words, through communication, through planning, through trying to dream big and then being constrained by time and money, it really forces creativity and tighter communication. And I love the challenges and puzzles that trying to bring live performance brings to my life. And then, of course, the payoff is sitting in the theater and you sit in the back and you see, a couple hundred people watching the theater and they laugh together and they clap their hands together. And just knowing that you've given someone a ride, so to speak, you've taken their mind on a journey that you've envisioned and you've worked tirelessly with a group of people. It just makes me really grateful for the things I get to do in life.
That's way cool. Talk about a little bit about what you said in A Thing of Beauty when you said that the body is an expression of joy. And I'll just leave it there.
So I appreciate that. I teased with my roommates when I was studying dance in New York City. We lived in our dorm room, nothing fancy. We were, starving artists, but we lived close to Central Park. And we said, let's go get high on endorphins from running, from taking a run. And the thrills that I have received in my life. And I now live a pretty, I try to live a pretty clean life. I really watch what I eat and my hydration and everything I put in my body is meticulously planned. But I get such a thrill out of using my body. And it is just such a joy, whether that's skiing with my little munchkins and I'm not skiing as fast as I know I can, but I'm just behind them as they're flying down the mountain. Or I'm just sweating next to somebody that I'm just trying to work on finding more awareness in my body. There are all these things. I think we get a taste of what our future joy is going to be like when we experience health and when we experience the community of sweating together with other people.
Well, and I also loved in your video when you talked about how you can take things like sports and then commute those into dance. So for me, that would even be something like, now how can you commute dance into something that I can do when I'm sitting down? When I'm in front of the computer writing a book or something and I'm there so long that you just get tired of it. So what kinds of things can you do?
Absolutely. So I love thinking that. I've spent so many hours on an airplane I can't even count. And you're stuck in this little box and you're flying to Singapore and you're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And so I just love to think about like space in between my bones. I love to think that my body is like just full of water and how can I just like flow that water through, like almost liquefy my bones, like if my bones didn't make my arm, and then I just kind of move just to shake things out, to just see if I can like center my body. So again, I love really athletic, pushing my body to the very limit. And then I love just the subtlety of like, you've been talking and you're sitting back in your chair and you're like, okay, how am I going to just lift through my lower back and engage my core and just open up my rib cage and connect to my back? And I just kind of do a check mark, a landmark through my anatomy, and just see if things are stacked up correctly.
And you feel better when you do that.
Oh, I feel better just talking with you, just kind of sitting up and doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
we have to talk about another aspect that I hadn't planned on, but it is pretty cool. And it actually goes with dance and body movement, is your tenacity. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey to become the moving Spider-Man? Because it wasn't one quick audition. Yay, I'm there, I did it.
So I appreciate you asking this. And I think when I spend time around my own children and when I'm with these university students here at BYU, the one thing I want to teach them is staying power and believing in yourself when you get a lot of no's, and that the no's aren't bad because they refine you. I think we've reached this spot in life where we want to play it safe. We want to make sure it's going to be a go before we put ourselves out there. And in my career, I really kept trying to like push for the next level of my own skills. I wanted to see how far I could take my abilities. And that involved a great deal of rejection. I was doing a water circ production in Las Vegas titled The Rev, and to me that was a dream job, and I was getting to fly over this 1 million gallon pool of water every night and dance, and just extraordinary experience as a performer. Things that I thought I would never experience until after I was finished with this life, just the thrill of flying at those type of speeds, and with the technology that's in theater nowadays. But I auditioned for Spider-Man, and I got down to the wire, and over a series of calls through different agents that represented me, I got to New York, and I was told, you're perfect for the show, you're just not right now. And so several times getting so close where you could taste it, and structuring your life around these decisions, and then
not to mention your money in the air ticket to go back.
Yes,
audition,
all things like that. And as a young artist, you really try to strategize the business sense as well. But all along that path, and then finally getting the door open to becoming Spider-Man was just such an answer to prayers, I believe. And also, I feel like prayers are answered when you put in the hard work. The economy of heaven loves hard work. So I think if I was just doing the spiritual work, but not putting my money where my mouth is, I don't think that opportunity would have come to pass. So I grew a lot in the process, and then the situation ended up working together. But I wanted to do another water show in Macau, China, and I had been told no and no and no several times. They said, we only hire gymnasts who have competed at the international level. And I just loved playing sports growing up. I wasn't a competitive gymnast. But at each show that I got, I kept videotaping my work on stage and sending it to them. And finally, after I had done the role of Spider-Man for 2 years, the director of the House of Dancing Water in Macau, China, came to see one of my final performances in Spider-Man and offered me a role in his show. And so again, the lessons of like, don't take no as like a final answer. Respect it for when you get it. And it hurt, and I got disappointed and upset. But then I made a plan to get better.
mm-hmm.
And so I used that rejection, hopefully, to make me better. And I've realized, we get feedback a lot in life. And I say, I need to be open to feedback. I'm not open to feedback when I first receive it. When I first receive it, it really cuts me. And I take it in, and then I work on the truth of that feedback and say, okay, I can improve this. I can improve this. Maybe I'm not ready to tackle this at this moment, but I've learned that I don't love feedback, but it ultimately makes me a much better human being and performer and artist.
We'll call that feedback plus time.
Yes, I like that. So thanks for the question.
Wow, thank you. You have made us think of something that maybe we haven't before, and the idea of the tenacity and the idea of let go. And I'm coming at that a little bit from the point of view of this book that I've written, Scott's Choice, but the subtitle is Letting Go and Letting God. And so the idea of, that's represented by Spider-Man, of doing the work, but then letting go, sometimes in letting go to accept the feedback, sometimes letting go of the hurt of going, I was perfect for that. You know what? One time, my sister, I wanted to do everything my older sister did,
Okay.
because she was perfect and wonderful. She was 10 years older than I. And she was historian of a group at the university. And I love history. I love taking pictures. I love, documenting things like that. So I tried out, is that what you call it? Audition for,
yeah.
whatever. I tried out for the historian, and they didn't choose me.
What?
And I was so distraught. I just went, I would have been so good. You should have chosen me. 2 days later, a friend came and she said, Elaine, have you seen the audition notices? No, what audition notices? They are doing Camelot at the university. The university at the time was the largest venue other than the Tabernacle, which usually had religious things.
Sure.
So it was the largest secular venue in Utah. Everything happened. We didn't have the Delta Center back then, or Vivint, or whatever they call it now. Everything happened at the university, and they had done Camelot in England, and then they had brought it for a few years to Broadway. This was the first year it had opened up to universities.
Okay.
So because I didn't get the other thing that I thought I wanted, then I was able to audition for Guinevere and got it, which was one of the hugest, events in my life. So sometimes, submitting and letting go, even though they're hard, they turn out to be good things too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing some time with us. Thank you.
Yes.
I always love to be with you, Adam, and your family. And
I appreciate you. It's such a privilege. You've talked to me about this amazing network that you've established of like-minded people who are just trying to be their best version. And for me, movement taps into that. And then just appreciating other art forms, right? Like my friends that are musicians and vocalists, like they feed me as an artist. So studying one discipline just helps me, I think, appreciate the communicative skills that others develop. And
that's
hopefully just
wonderful.
all makes it a better place to live, right?
Besides a good dancer, you're a pretty good speaker too.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And go and smile and wave at people, and we'll talk to you later.